r/ask Reddit, what ruined religion for you? Going to a megachurch. They received over 1 million donations every weekend and spent it on elaborate props and videos rather than helping the community in any meaningful way. There's a megachurch outside of Tampa that has a ducking Starbucks in it. It's what the baby Jesus would have wanted. When I was 6 years old, the pastor gave a letter to my aunt to give to my mom saying that we were not donating enough money to the church, so we stopped going, and I have never been to church since. Something like this happened to my friend's grandma. The church wrote her a letter basically saying they knew how much money she was making and that she should be giving more to the church. Her response was, "Screw you guys. I'm moving to Mexico." Honestly, the balls on these churches. Woman face palming. Religious people. Only God has the right to judge, yet religious people are the most judgmental people you can meet. Anybody who has a different view to them. Also, if you've ever been to a church, they all gossip about each other. Talk about not practicing what you preach. My mom was a church organist choir director for a long time and I got to know a lot of the members and other employees. Some of the fakest people I've ever met. The gossip was insane and the backstabbing among the staff was as bad or worse. So many times someone tried to throw my mom under the bus. Fortunately, my dad also did some work for them. Saw right through all their bullshit and stuck up for her. Being told that being sexually abused as a child was a good thing as God needed to teach me a lesson on hubris and ego. I should accept it as a lesson and be better so I wouldn't fall into the clutches of the devil. I was 7. Apparently I was asking for it. Same. My aunt said I was asking for it. As a 5-year-old did it. Wow. Thank you all for your support. I blamed myself my whole childhood. So I'm thankful Reddit can help cheer me up. Tears up. Your aunt sounds like a piece of shit. The non-answers to all my questions as a kid. You just have to have faith as a dumb way to respond to an inquisitive mind. When I was a kid I asked my grandmother where God came from and she smacked me across the face and said we don't ask questions like that. I was just being honestly curious because I wanted to understand and her reaction shocked me. That's where it all started for me. We asked my pastor how you reconcile a human-centric creation theory with hundreds of millions of years of non-human life. Was God just screwing around making dinosaurs and massive ecologies as a warm-up before humans? The pastor said he believed in the pan theory when it came to that. Excited, I asked what that was. Life or Jesus and everything else will pan out. LOL. I worked at a restaurant near a church on Sundays. Rudest bunch of people ever. Edit. Thank you for the likes and awards. Some people believe that being religious makes them better than non-religious. When I left the church I was persona non grata. None of the members will even look at me now. Oh well. There is this really popular Christian radio station my parents listened to when I was younger, and when the hosts were talking about some Christian gathering they referred to non-believers as a key people. I was so annoyed. At the time I was still religious and kept thinking, what if someone who didn't believe was checking this out for the first time? I am very much not religious now, but back then it really opened my eye to how shitty people were. Religious leaders ruined religion for me. I never met a single priest who could tell me about heaven, but they all knew every square inch of hell. They should. They built it. I actually had the experience of attending a small Christian church for many years that had a pastor who was very intelligent, well-read and open for debates and discussions. His description of heaven was that heaven is whatever brings you closer to God. Whether it's here on earth or after our time here isn't the point. Of course he took a very Christian perspective, but did so without ruling out other religious paths in getting to that place. I thought that was pretty good. My mother, she instilled some serious shame into me under the guise of God. Some things she said, not allowed to believe in Santa because that takes credit away from God. Santa was actually a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me. Not allowed to believe in the Easter Bunny because it was also a hand of Satan trying to corrupt me away from Jesus. I wasn't allowed to feel pride in my accomplishments because it's a sin. I was a donghead because my dad got me fully vaccinated as a child, and that is against God's plan. Hollywood is operated by Satan, so I wasn't allowed to watch movies or shows, especially Disney. Harry Potter was an absolute no because witchcraft is an affront to God. Scientists should not be trusted under any circumstances. My rare genetic condition was part of God's plan and I'd understand someday. Not allowed to say damn because it's an affront to God etc. That combined with irregular, not religious abuse has left me struggling a lot with my religiosity. My favorite part about the first one, that is Santa's technically a sin. I'm making an assumption here, but the flavor of Christianity described here seems likely to be one of the ones that considers Catholics evil. So being sin would be a knock against Santa, not for. It quickly became evident that many people who call themselves religious only do so to feel morally superior to others around them, and then use that superiority to try to control everything they can. I like to say that Jesus was a carpenter who gave his followers a hammer to build with. They took the hammer and started hitting other people with it. I see this behavior in my kids a lot. I'll ask them to do something individually, then for some godforsaken reason they'll try telling each other that they need to do it, then naturally come tattling on each other to me, at which point I'll explain again that I didn't ask them to police each other. I asked each of them to do the thing on their own. Rinse and repeat. People using it to justify their hate. People using it to justify everything. LMAO. That's the magic of faith. Don't have a good reason for believing something, just use some good old faith to justify literally any position you'd like. My brother-in-law did the same thing after abandoning a child. Couldn't stop talking about God and about how everyone around him is a sinner when he was doing meth and beating woman and child. Now he has triplets with another methed out girl who already had a kid where they also beat each other. His whole shtick is being a real alpha man and his life is so pathetically ruined because I don't wear condoms. They don't feel good, ducking loser. Thanks. Stories like this always remind me I'm not as bad as I think. LMAO. Seeing how people use religion as an excuse to be shitty people around the world. So many people just bend their interpretation of a religion to fit whatever they want. If I have to boil my experience down to a simple concept, it's this. There's much more nuance, but overall you're using a book that will give you a passage to justify whatever you want to do. I was like 15 and playing an instrument in the worship band for the most popular youth group in the area, which is a very Christian area. At one point the pastor dude was praying and the musicians were behind him waiting to play when he was done. But the whole room, 200 plus, had their heads bowed as dude was praying. Then his prayer went into the whole "here's what you pray if you want to become a Christian right now, yada yada yada." Then at the end he says, "Okay everyone, keep your heads bowed, eyes closed. Now if you just prayed that prayer with me, I want you to look up. Everyone else keep your heads bowed, but if you just now gave your life to Jesus, look up at me or raise your hand so I can see you. I'm behind him and facing the crowd who have their eyes closed, so I decide it's safe to take a peek. I discreetly look up and notice that exactly 0 people in the crowd are looking up at him. Every single person still has their head bowed, eyes closed, open bracket, which is fine. I mean, maybe they were all already Christians. However, as I'm looking at nobody responding, Mr. Pastor starts saying, "Okay, I see you there. Oh, I see another over there. Amen, and you back there. Praise God. Yes, I see you over there. Amen, come find me afterwards." It was perplexing to see him lie to so many people like that. And this wasn't some nobody youth pastor. He was like quite legit, having written books and being mentioned in national articles and stuff. TLDR. An acclaimed youth pastor tried to make it seem like his prayer had converted several people, when I could clearly see it had not. That's ducking hilarious. I've been to services like those, and I've always wondered. This is so accurate to stuff I've experienced, it's scary. The fact that if you're not in my religion, you're kinda ducked in the afterlife. I didn't choose my religion, so what makes me so special? Reminds me of something I read on Wikipedia about Mel Gibson. When asked about the Catholic doctrine of extra regulam nulla salus, Gibson replied, "There is no salvation for those outside the church. I believe it. Put it this way, my wife is a sin. She's a much better person than I am. Honestly, she's Episcopalian, Church of England. She prays. She believes in God. She knows Jesus. She believes in that stuff. And it's just not fair if she doesn't make it. She's better than I am. But that is a pronouncement from the chair. I go with it. However, Gibson later told Diane Sawyer that he believes non-Catholics and non-Christians can go to heaven, not like it matters to me because I do not believe in afterlife. But wow. People actually believe that a benevolent God will refuse good people because they had another faith. This is it. When I was in the 3rd grade, my best friend was Indian and Hindu. My aunt said she would pray for him and his heathen family, and that was enough for me to turn away from religion early. It was only reinforced with time. So many things, but the final straw for me was my church asking a homeless man to leave and not come back. He would sit and listen to the sermons, never bothered anyone, and always sat in the very back. I confronted my youth group leader and she defended the preacher. I hear stuff like this all the time and it's so infuriating. Like, what the duck? Doesn't the Bible, doesn't your God, teach you to be kind and loving and selfless? To love people no matter what? I've only ever met one church leader / pastor / whatever in my entire life who lived by those teachings. I met him when I had already separated from religion, but he was truly a man of God if there ever was one. He was what Christianity should look like. He loved everyone, every single person, equally and unequivocally. His church was always open to everyone from all walks of life. He fed anyone who was hungry, would literally give you the clothes off his back if you needed them, offered wisdom and guidance and counseling services, never tried to push religion on you, just made you feel loved and accepted no matter what. His church was a haven to the homeless. He ran breakfasts every Saturday, cooked huge meals all the time, had gatherings on holidays, and let the homeless use the church for recreation, shelter, food, water, amenities. I don't think I'd have such of an issue with Christianity as a practice if more Christians were like him. I have only met one man like this. Out of my whole devout Christian family and former life as a devout Christian, it was my great uncle, who had a cleft palate and would lead the choir. He was there to worship, not to sound good. He used to go to local colleges to sit on benches and listen to distressed students and pray for him. I cried so hard at his funeral, because he was my only safe haven in that hypocritical family, and he was the only good man I knew on that side. He was truly a son. Seeing a whole congregation of people perform an exorcism on a 5-year-old boy. I was a teen youth leader at a Southern Baptist church I had been involved with for several years. During Sunday morning service one day, one of the deacons came from the children's church building next door and interrupted the preacher to whisper something in his ear. They both left immediately, and when they returned, were dragging a 4 or 5-year-old boy down the aisle who was screaming like a banshee. They ended up taking him in front of the church, holding him down, and reciting all sorts of bullshit about demonic possession, asking the churchgoers to come up to him and help banish the demon from the child. Kinda ruined God for me. The worst part about this is that they never suspect the child to be autistic. I wouldn't doubt that he was autistic, but really, what I attributed it to more than anything was that the child was growing up in a single-parent home with a mother who was recovering from drug addiction, and she struggled a lot with raising her 2 kids. They both acted out a lot. The child wasn't possessed. He just needed love. When I was sexually assaulted by another boy and I spoke to my pastor because I was afraid to tell my family, he asked me what I did to make the other kid have impure thoughts and tried to make it out to be my fault. That was the exact moment I lost what little faith I had to begin with. I was surprised to have to scroll this far to find the weird sex stuff. Mine was a child molester that was a youth group volunteer. He molested several children, all boys, and the church decided that they wouldn't do anything except say he couldn't work with kids anymore. I distinctly remember them talking about it during a service, and I looked back at the guy sitting in the pews and he was smirking. Ducking disgust is all I feel when someone talks about their religion. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.